the Martha and Mary story today. I was thinking this week when I was preparing how hectic our world is, how hectic our individual schedules, how our individual lives are so busy. In fact, in our culture, we have this tendency to measure success by how much we accomplish, right? It makes us feel tugged in so many different directions that it leaves us feeling tired and stressed out. But it's simply the way of our culture. And to some extent, rightly so, because it's the world we live in. Our world is indeed fast-paced. The paradigms are shifting, the world is changing, and it moves at a quick rate. To give you an example of how quickly the world changes and how we have to try to work to keep up, which adds to this level of busyness. During the General Assembly last week, I noticed that one of our national church leaders posted on Facebook and said that the church is 20 years behind our culture. And rural churches and small churches, that's us, are 30 years behind those churches. Do the math, that means we're 50 years behind the culture. It's true, I suspect. The world shifts so fast that we can hardly keep up with it. If you buy a new cell phone today, by next year it's obsolete. You'll be lucky to be able to find a battery for it. Certainly your carrier won't have that battery. You'll have to go to Battery Plus, right? And if you bought a new laptop this week, by next week, it's the old model. And if you just remodeled your house, anybody done that here? Remodeled their house recently? And no doubt if you did, you watched a lot of those decorating shows, and they convinced you that the way to be right now is to have all stainless steel appliances and granite countertops. And if you did that and spent $1 gazillion to do it, guess what? In a year or so, those are going to be passé, and they're going to be saying something different, that you should have white appliances and butcher block tops. So the world just changes so fast that we can hardly stay up with it. At the county fair, I believe on Thursday, I was talking with the Noblesville High School technology teacher. By the way, when I was in high school, that was the high school typewriting teacher. He was sharing with me that the Noblesville School Corporation is buying an iPad for every sophomore and senior at Noblesville High School. I can't tell you the exact number, but we're talking about probably 2,000 students in the sophomore and senior class. That is a far cry from the old Remington typewriter that I used in Della Spears typing class my freshman year, I can tell you. The world has changed. That's my point. The culture in our society is changing by vast amounts and at a rapid pace. And us being responsible people, we want to keep up with what's going on as best we can. We want to do what's best for our families. We want to provide every opportunities for ourselves and our children. We want to serve our neighbors. We want to... Okay, let's take a deep breath. We have hectic schedules in our lives. Sometimes when I look at my calendar, whether my electronic calendar or my paper calendar, there's another one, having an electronic calendar, something that's changed dramatically now, instead of a paper calendar. I look and I think, how in the world am I going to be able to attend, accomplish, prepare, and plan for all these things I have coming this next week, and still have any time to have any sense of God being present in my life at all? In fact, we become so distracted by our hectic schedules that we often completely miss the exquisiteness of our very existence. We're just too busy. And that's a shame. So this morning I want to share with you the scripture from Luke's Gospel, Luke 10, 38 through 42. Now, as they went on their way, he, meaning Jesus, entered a certain village where a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. She had a sister named Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to what he was saying. But Martha was distracted by her many tasks. So she came to him, Jesus, and asked, "Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her then to help me. But the Lord answered her, Martha, Martha, you are worried and distracted about many things. There is need of only one thing. Mary has chosen the better part, which will not be taken away from her. Now, often in the discussions of Mary and Martha, people want to defend Martha's busyness because the work of the church is busy. Those of you who are active in church activities, like yesterday, where we had men possibly up the guided breakfast in Murphwood Christian Church, we had a bacon rummage sale here, and we were cooking and serving hot dogs up in Hamilton County, know that there's a lot to be done. And we also want to be busy extending hospitality to our neighbors and our guests. And we have to have people that do that, right? Everybody agree? We have to have people take care of all that. And in this story, Martha's the person who's doing that. Someone has to. She's so distracted, though, she tries to pull Mary into that distraction as well. Now, I'm a person who grew up in a family that spent long hours in preparation to be good hosts. We wanted to be hosts and hostesses to those on our front porch, in our kitchen, and in our church. And I bet you either are like that or you know someone like that. First thing my mother did when someone entered the house was to offer food, right? Can I get you something to eat? And maybe sometimes she was so busy doing that it distracted her because she was either busy frying chicken, making cheese and crackers, or doing something that just caused her to not be able to pay attention to what was going on. She had these iconic gestures of food preparation to offer hospitality, but she also missed out on time to sit and visit, to have someone she could share with and pass those informations on. You know, I see the same things happen often in both of my churches. We have food pantries where we serve our neighbors hospitality food. And people come into work and they're all busy putting food where it's supposed to go and getting to your assigned spot and doing those tasks, and we need to do them, right? But I seldom see my good folk sitting down at the table with our neighbors just visiting. We're too distracted, I think. I know that this image of Mary and Martha is an old story. And it's a story about welcome, about hospitality, but it's also a story about distraction. It's a story that might call to us, though, that Christ is present in our life and that we need to be aware of that and not be distracted by it. His holy presence is there for us all the time. It made me think about when I was doing my training at IU Riley Children's Hospital. And one night I was walking down the hall and I heard this commotion. And because chaplains are kind of attracted to commotion, nobody calls us for ice cream and cake. If you get called, it's because someone's crashing, right? So when you hear noises, you always kind of instinctively move toward them. Probably policemen do the same thing, I bet, huh? So I rounded the doorway and I saw people with loud voices and crying, and you could feel the tension of the anxiety in the air. So I entered the room and I introduced myself. I said, "Hi, I'm Brooks. I'm the chaplain." The loud voices ended, the crying stopped, and you could literally feel the anxiety go away. I got to tell you, it scared me. Because I had not said anything, I had not done anything, and I didn't know what had happened. Well, later that week in a didactic conversation in our group, our mentor shared with me that often people representing God, and that's all of us, will calm people down just by our very presence. But what's interesting to me, and I still don't understand it, I've got to tell you right now, but what's interesting to me is God, Jesus was already there with them, right? Brooks, I'm nobody. I didn't have anything to do with it. Jesus was already there, but they were so distracted by what was going on that they couldn't tell Jesus was there until someone told them the news. I don't have any power, but God does. I would ask you in your individual life, in the life of this church, in the life of all churches, do we represent God's calming presence in people's life? do we give people God's living power forward? Now we know that this congregation and my other congregation, and most congregations, our entire culture is in transition. We're having a changing paradox beyond our own understanding. And because it's continually changing, the world is moving fast, we're asking ourselves all the time, what is it God is calling us to do at this time, this place, and now? But what we have to be careful about is, are our lives too hectic for us to even know what it is God's saying to us? If you follow me on Facebook, you know on Thursday night, and one of the reasons you might look at me and Elvin and say, boy, Brooks and Elvin look really tired, stressed out. You'll probably hit it right on the button here. It's been a long week, and I wrote that I had a heavy heart because a gentleman who had visited us here in worship had hung himself and died. And I didn't sleep very well Thursday night. To be honest with you, I haven't slept very well since then. Because I wondered, what had I missed in that conversation? Had my life been so hectic, had the life of our church been so hectic that we hadn't heard that cry for the pain that he had? Now, I don't want to point any fingers or sign any guilt, because God is a God of mercy and grace and compassion. Guilt and shame have no place in the community of God. So we don't need to feel bad about not recognizing that. But I would encourage us all to take a look at our lives and make sure that we haven't lost focus by the distractions that surround us all the time, that we miss God being there, God telling us, this is what I want you to do. I think that's the key of the Martha and Mary story, is as a reminder to focus on Jesus. Not be distracted by the things of life, because there's a gazillion things that can distract us. That we need to be aware that God is there with us. God is always asking us to pay attention, and we need to. The writer Luke says it this way. The Lord answered her, Martha, Martha, you are worried and distracted by so many things. There is need of only one thing, and that one thing is Jesus. This is the word of God for the people of God. Praise be to God.